To take the gun apart is we're going to take off the sight rail, put it out of the way, and then we're going to remove the foregrip, and it's one bolt at the top of the grip. Undo it completely, and you have to take the bolt out. Take the bolt out to allow the foregrip to slide off. Always a good idea to put the bolt back into there so you don't lose it. Okay, and the next thing we're going to take off is the rubber grips. I recommend taking those off from both sides. Take it off completely. When you're removing these, the short screw if you can see that, comes out of the top, and the longer screw comes out of the bottom. Longer one at the bottom. Short screw out of the top, longer one out of the bottom. And just completely take off the rubber grip. Okay, now the next thing to do when we take this apart is we're going to undo all of the bolts that hold it together. Now the first thing to remember is at the bottom, in the regulator area, there's a small bolt which is the same size Allen key as the rubber grips are. And at this point I like to take out the one on the other side as well, just in case we're going to take the full body out. Makes it easier to do it if you do it now than if you do it once the gun's fully disassembled. Okay, and then we're going to undo all of these bolts. Now it's a really good idea, because there are a few of them. If you take an old Allen key, cut it down and put it into an electric drill, it makes it a lot faster to undo all of these. The bolts along the top are shorter, and sometimes they'll undo and just leave the nut behind. Don't worry too much about that at this point. You don't need to worry about taking off the Picatinny rail. Those just stay with the body side. Once they're all undone, should be able to just separate, lift up the body, and off comes the top body. At this point, if you turn it over, you can take out the rest of the nuts and bolts, but don't worry too much about it. We get inside and there's the full gun. The battery door comes out from between the two body sides. Trigger guard comes out from between the two body sides, and if you wanted to, this is how you take it apart to replace the single trigger with a double trigger. We have the trigger return spring. This also creates the spring for the selector. And then we have trigger that comes off of the pivot post, and that's the the magnet that activates the trigger sensor, and then these are the adjustment screws. Okay, so out comes all of that. Then I'm going to take out the stock, and you just lift it up, bring the piece out of the tongue and groove at the back, slide it out from behind the body, and then bring out the spacer as well. And you'll see the spacer here is orientated with the longer part of the point facing towards the back end of the gun. Okay, now what we can do is we can lift out the rest of the main drive system. Something important to note here is the way the wiring goes. It's coming out of the connector, it's coming through the gap in the board, along down the side, round behind the air transfer tube, hopefully we can see that, behind the air transfer tube, and then along into the wiring harness, then comes up. And if we want to disconnect that, the easiest way to do this is to lift the body out and lift out the wiring harness support as well, and then simply disconnect at the back, and that'll disconnect you from the battery clips that are going to stay in the body of the gun. All that's left in this side of the gun is the battery clips and that little piece of wiring harness. And we'll put that out of the way. And before we move into the main valve system, one of the things I just want to show you on the left-hand side of the body shell is the selector still stays attached to the body shell. You don't have to undo that screw to remove the selector. You just leave it in place and it'll stay on the inside. If you can see that right here. And you can see on there that it also has those two little silver magnets which work to activate the different modes of the gun when you're changing it with the selector. Okay? So we'll put that out of the way. Now what we have, and we don't want to lose them, is the two little brass nuts which should just poke through. They're a little bit of a tight fit. Oh, there goes one. And there goes the second one. And those are just used to lock the body and the plastic body shell together with the bottom of the regulator. So we'll keep them safe.